Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another live stream and a transfer update with a little bit of a twist. Today, as you can see, I'm delighted to be joined by Spurs fan Saga. Saga, thanks so much for your time. As always, mate, we're going to be getting stuck into all things London-based, I suppose. Chelsea, Spurs, two of the biggest clubs in London. Lots going on at the moment. Chelsea, from my perspective, having a half-decent window. I'm pleased with the outgoings, a little bit slow on the incomings. Pre-season coming up pretty soon with like a little bit more news on those incomings, but apart from that, I'm content. I'm happy with how things are going at this point in time. I think from a Spurs perspective, from my point of view, I think there's been some decent business. I think James Maddison is a fantastic signing. I think Manuel Solomon, whilst not exactly going to be one of those headline grabbers, I think it's a good piece of business in terms of a free transfer and someone that can provide kind of rotation option and depth within the squad, and then defensive reinforcements that like could be coming. But again, I suppose from a Spurs perspective with Levy, it's always like, well, he does one good thing and then kind of to mask up all the other crap stuff that he's done to try and make people forget about it. But I mean, first of all, mate, what have you made of where Spurs are now at this point in the window? Maddison came a few weeks ago. I had Manuel Solomon, as I said, and then you're getting closer on Van der Ven, the Wolfsburg defender. I mean, are you happy with the business and how things are going at Spurs so far, mate?
Listen, I've supported Spurs a long time now. And it's very much what you said. It's always one step forward. And with Levy, it's normally about 10 steps back. Look, the key thing that all Spurs fans are crying out for is centre-halves. So at the moment, I feel like whatever they do, until they bring in some top centre-halves, everyone's going to question what the plan is, what the structure is. Now, we hear lots of talks about Van der Ven, Tapsoba. But, mate, we've been in, apparently, biggest word in football, we've been in talks with these two for over 2 weeks. Like, how does it take that long? When you guys go in to buy players, I know we'll get on to Chelsea in a bit, but when you guys go in to bid for players, you will go bish, bash, bosh, done.
Well, not Spurs with the Caicedo thing. That's been a long time.
Yeah, but that's a big signing, isn't it? That's like that's when we're talking about 95, 100 million pound signings, these are big deals. We're talking about 30 million euros.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? And Look, James Maddison is obviously the signing that has excited everyone. Goals, assists, guaranteed. I think if you look at his career, he's got something like 77 goal and assists in 160 games for Leicester in the league in the last 4 years. I mean, that's one every two. No problem with that. The keeper, a bit of an unknown quantity in some respects, but lots of the Italian goalkeepers are saying that he's the one. We'll see. And then Manuel Solomon on a free. A good bit of business on a free transfer, adds squad depth, gives us some more attacking options. Again, like you say, it's not going to set the pulse racing, but sometimes not every signing has to do that. Not every signing has to be a wow moment. So quietly happy, but until the centre-backs come in, it's going to be the same old at Tottenham.
I mean, in terms of Van der Ven, obviously centre-half from Wolfsburg, I think he's under 21 skipper for the Dutch side. He'd be a decent signing. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I've watched loads of him because I haven't, but he's meant to be up and coming. He's meant to be good. He's certainly make a difference to Spurs' defensive line. We had the news the other night that, Tottenham were advancing in talks. Obviously, I don't know how much more advanced those talks have got yet, but is he looking at being around sort of 25, 30 million, that sort of price range for him?
Yeah, I mean, this was the thing when we first started having the talks. And everyone, we all hang on Romano's word, don't we? And it was Spurs are in talks and they've tabled their first verbal bid, all this kind of stuff. The conversation was around 30 million euros. Then reports came. Look, I always use words like reports and supposedly because you just don't know.
Yeah.
Supposedly it was, they want 40 million euros. Then it was, Wolfsburg haven't been in conversation with Spurs. Romano comes out Monday. What is it? Wednesday now. He comes out Monday night going, it's close. Both clubs had a good day. Reports coming out today from in Germany saying that Wolfsburg are saying, what bid? So it's kind of like, look, if it's not him, just get someone else. Like, just Just get some centre. Charlie, I'm at the stage where I'd have you playing centre half for Spurs, and I've never seen you play.
I'll be better than Eric Dyer for sure.
Yeah, but no one's going to make a documentary about you, mate.
Well, mate, they're absolutely not. I'm probably no one's going to pay me X £1,000 a week either. But yeah, like you look at obviously Van der Ven, Tapsoba, another one that's been linked up by Leverkusen. Is it, as far as you're concerned, is it one of those two, or for you, do you need both of those two?
We need both. Absolutely need both. We've got. I mean, if I read you, these are the five. I'm going to put Romero to one side. Yeah, going to go to Romero to one side. Big up to Battersea Chelsea as well. Big up to you. Much love. You look at the other five centre halves at our club: are Dyer, Tanganga, Roden, Sanchez, and Davis.
That's poor.
Now, when you look at those five, you need, for me, I think you need Romero, Van der Ven, Tapsoba as your first three choices. I think we'll play a back four, so two of them will play. One as your reserve, your sub, and then I think I'd be happy with either a Davis or Dyer for 1 year as fourth choice. But when we start talking about one of them starting, I think it scares a lot of Spurs fans. Because we let in 63 goals last year, mate. So we need both.
Do you know I was having this conversation with a lot of Chelsea fans, right? About I think we're going to play back four next season as well. Poch normally goes with a back four. How many centre halves, right, do you think you need if you're playing a back four? Because I think you need five, but reports are suggesting that Pochettino only wants to work with four. A lot of fans say to me that, I think we only need four. But I look at it, yes, we're only playing once a week. We're both only playing once a week. We've obviously got League Cup when that starts, no FA Cup until next year. How many do you think you need? Because I look at it and I think, firstly, for our centre halves, Badiashile and Fofana, in the short amount of time I've been here, have proven they're quite susceptible to injury. You pick up one or two injuries, a suspension and whatnot, and you're down to not that many. I know, obviously, like you don't want to be rotating your centre backs too much, but I still maintain that you need five. Going with four, I think, is a little bit of a risk with injuries and that sort of thing. How many do you think you need for if you're going to go back forward a squad?
Yeah, I think this is the interesting point. If you are going to play a back four, for me, I think you need at least 4 pros, and then I think you've got to have some faith that there's maybe a couple of younger centre halves that you're willing to give game time to. Because, like you said, if you've only got 3 and 2 have an injury, where are you? Where are you at? It's a delicate balance, isn't it? Because, you know, if you've got too many centre halves, but yet they all know you're only playing 2 and you're only playing once a week, they know there's not a lot of rotation. Where's their game time coming from? Do you know what I mean? Unless you go deep into cups. So from my point of view, you guys have got, you'll tell me if I'm wrong, Badiashile, Fofana, Thiago Silva, Colwill, and Chalobah.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. Is that the worst?
That's
5
pretty
centre-backs.
Pretty good. That I look at it and like last season for us, defense wasn't a problem. Yes, we can upgrade on Kepa and stuff, but the defense wasn't the reason that we were so shit. We scored 38 goals last season. We're 40 goals short. I mean,
as many as Harry Kane on his own.
Well, exactly. But this is the point, though. Like, if you put Harry Kane in Chelsea, suddenly that last season puts us top 4, top 5. Like with one striker. But look, I think Thiago Silva, he's going to be 40 this year. He still plays. He's probably going to be the new captain, waiting to announce that. And then you've got Fofana, Colwill, Badiashile, and Chalobah as well, all as rotation options. Now, that's a lot of very good centre backs that would probably start for a large majority of teams in the Premier League. That are going to be unhappy, or not unhappy, but aren't going to be getting as many minutes as they want. So this is the problem when you have, it's all great having these options, but when you're only playing once a week, it does create a little bit of a headache for you, because these are all players that in their own right deserve to play. You know, Colwill looks like a fantastic footballer. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. I hope he stays. Let's just get onto that Colwill thing quickly, because I'm sure you've seen it from outside. Like, I think Chelsea fans are one of the worst fan bases for over-analysing everything. You know, you get that video, he's just won obviously the Euro under-21s. He's with Midwake. They're doing a live on the pitch after the game. He's like, oh yeah, I'm going to make sure he comes back. And he looks a bit like Colwill looks a bit off about it, sort of thing. But people are like going mad about it. I'm just like, the kid's 19. He's just won the Euros or whatever. And we're analysing every single little thing that he does. I don't think there's anything wrong with seeking assurances at 19. If you're going to sign a 5, 6, 7-year contract at Chelsea, to get assurances that there's going to be some sort of minutes available for you. And then obviously once you get into the team, it's up to you to perform and make sure you stay there. I don't think there's any issue with that. But people are calling him arrogant and saying that he's demanding to be a starter. He's not. This guy wants to be in the England squad for the Euros next summer and absolutely has got a massive chance if he plays regularly next season. He's a top defender. And, I think he's got every right to seek assurances on whether he's going to be a big part player at Chelsea. And if he's not, then he needs to assess his options. I mean, how do you view the Levi Colwill situation?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I had this conversation, actually. I was on Never a Foul Media the other day and we was talking about Levi Colwill. And I said, look, I like him. I like Levi Colwill. What I've seen of him, I'm also cautiously optimistic. Forget me being a Spurs fan. As a football fan, I'm cautiously optimistic that when you get players like Levi Colwill, other younger players, they go out on loan, they have a good spell, and then everyone, for me, wants to elevate them to the point where they're either godlike or they're terrible. And no one wants them anywhere in the middle where they can learn and they can grow. For me, he looks good. He looks like he's got all the attributes to be a top player. But at the same time, he has only played 17 games in the Premier League on loan. So for me, if I was him this year, I would knuckle down. I would look at it and try and become that third choice centre-back at Chelsea. Try and start the season as the third. I don't think he'll start as one of the first two, but I might be wrong. He might do. But if not, try and become that third choice centre back. That when one of the others gets injured, you slot yourself in. You have 10, 15 games in a row while they're injured, and then everyone goes, well, you can't take this kid out of the team, and that's how a career is born. Look, I get it. He's young, and unfortunately, back in the day, 19-year-olds would. They would bide their time. They would try and work their way into the first team. But there weren't squads of about 25 players then. Now everyone wants everything immediately. It's like, I must be playing first team football. And it's good because you rate yourself, you're confident. But at the same time, if you want that first team football to be at a club of the stature and the size of Chelsea, 19-year-olds don't often just walk in, So I think it's a really difficult balance, isn't it? At the same time, I can't see you guys selling him at all.
No, it's not going to be sold. No,
I can't see you selling him. But maybe it gives Poch the option of playing a back three.
Yeah, there's also that option as well. There's options there. But if I was Levi Colwill as well, yes, I know you want to be in the Euro squad next summer, and I think there is ample opportunity for you to be able to do that. But I would also look at it and think, right, Thiago Silva is not going to keep playing forever. And I've said it pretty much most seasons since he signed. Yeah. He's not going to keep going on, but he keeps going on, and age doesn't seem to be affecting his performances at all. But I would expect that this will be Silva's last season. As a 19-year-old centre-back, there's not many better players that you can learn from in the art of defending than Thiago Silva. And you think,
Absolutely.
Right, if I have a year at Chelsea where, all right, I might not be playing every single week, but I might get the same amount of games that I did at Brighton. I might play sort of 10 to 15 games, but I'm going to be learning from Silva. I'm going to be in an environment where I'm around elite players and with a top-class manager that's going to develop my game on more. And then when Silva probably leaves next summer, you are in that, the pole position seat to then step into the void left by him and play very regularly at, say, the age of 20. So I look at it from his perspective. And I do agree with what you say. Young players now want everything so quickly. And you've got to back yourself and stuff. But maybe it is more beneficial for him to stay at Chelsea and learn from Silva and stuff.
I agree.
Than, for example, go and play. Is going to Brighton on a permanent transfer? Would that be, not that Chelsea would sell him, but as an option? Would that be best for his career? I don't really know.
I think if I was Chelsea and if I was Colwill, I'd manage the situation like this. I would manage the situation where, okay, this year, are you going to be the number one centre half? Probably not. But what you want to do is put yourself in a position that next year, if Thiago Silva leaves, that Chelsea don't need to turn around and go, we need to find a 70, 80 million pound centre back. Hang on. Levi Colwill's ready. That's where I think if I was Colwill, I'd want to say, right, test myself this year. As you said, get your 15, 20 Premier League games. See if you can get your League Cup games and your FA Cup games under your belt as well. And next year, you've got a ready-made centre-half to go. But look, at the end of the day, Chelsea aren't going to sell him. right? I think all of this, Liverpool want him and Brighton want him. Chelsea are not going to let go of a talent like that, yeah, right now. I think in the past, you would have. I truly believe in the past.
I agree, yeah.
You would have. You let Guehi go. You let Tomori go. I don't think you're, at the moment, I don't think you're where you were a few years back. And I think you're in a building kind of phase where letting go of that kind of talent doesn't make sense. And that's the only noises I've heard officially from Chelsea, is that he's going nowhere. So listen, all it takes, let's assume Fofana and Badiashile you're starting two. I don't know. I'm just surmising. All it takes is one injury. There's Colwill. That's how your career can really kick off. So stay put, learn, grow, and stay with your boyhood club. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, obviously, we wanted to sign a new contract and stuff, but we're not in a pressing situation where it's got to be addressed this summer. He's got 2 more years left on a contract. I think the club have got an option for another year as well. So it's not one of them where it's an urgent situation that needs to be tied down. Yes, it'd be sooner rather than later. It'd be better to kind of get rid of all the questions surrounding him. But I think it's a top player there, and I'm really interested to see how Pochettino uses him and how much of a chance that he gets at Chelsea. But I just wanted to talk about selling players. Something that obviously we're very good at Chelsea is selling players, getting good deal for players, etc. In the last 10 years, I've seen something that no club have made more money through player sales than Chelsea. Like we are good at it. Yes, we buy a lot of players, we accrue a lot of players, but we're also good at selling players as well. You look at Spurs. Daniel Levy obviously runs a very tight ship. He's not the most popular guy with Spurs fans. How would you view Spurs as a selling club, when it's time to get rid of players? Do you think Tottenham are good at selling players? And what players do you want to see go this summer that are still here that shouldn't be here?
No, we're dreadful. Listen, I think, it's what goes around comes around, right? I think Spurs fans have to realise that, okay, when Spurs fans as a collective, we look at the Chelseas, we look at the Man Cities, the Man United, we watch these clubs that go and spend a lot more money than we do, right? And we go, oh, they've spent all this money, right? Yeah, but they spend that money because they know that they're going to accumulate some of it back when they sell the players and move them on. And that's football, right? You're constantly evolving your squad every year. Spurs buy poorly, then struggle to sell the poor players. And that's the difference, right? If you know that whole kind of saying of, buy bad, buy twice. Yeah. Spurs have that in kind of reverse with, buy bad, fail to sell. And that is why so many of our players have been at Tottenham for such a long time. Who realistically, like, we're in talks with Galatasaray apparently. Davinson Sanchez, who we signed at 42 million.
That's like 9 million euros.
9 million. That's 7.5 million quid.
That's out. And he's still a decent age as well, isn't he?
He's a decent age. He's just not a decent footballer. Yeah. Harry Winks went for 8 million, could rise to 12 million with add-ons. Now I look at like Chelsea. If I look at, you guys will know way more than me, but if I look at Chelsea through the last years, like Tammy Abraham went for 30 plus. Yeah. Tomori went for 30 plus. Guehi went for 25 million. Players that couldn't get in your first team are collecting 25, 30, 40 million fees.
Yeah.
Lamptey, I could go and go and go.
Even this summer, we've got between Mason Mount and Kai Havertz got 125 million quid.
Yeah.
Which is unbelievable business. Like,
whereas Spurs, by the way, East Side Views in your chat said, Spurs fans think they're an elite club. Listen, not all Spurs fans. Listen, they need to watch me on William Hill, don't they, Charlie? If they think I think we're an elite club.
Yeah.
Look, it's difficult, right? You've got players like, take Davinson Sanchez, for example. He's on 86 grand a week. Now,
he was a good player, though. Like, when you signed him, I feel like, do you not think, though, like, when you saw him in that Ajax team, obviously he played in that Europa League final. I think he was alongside Daley Blind, wasn't he, at the back? I know he was I can't remember who was alongside at the back.
It would have been De Ligt, maybe.
It would have been De Ligt and Sanchez. Yeah. Like, he was a good player. And, like, when Spurs signed him, I looked at it and I thought, that's a pretty good signing. Like, he was a decent young centre-back.
Never kicked on.
Never
so
kicked
many.
On. Yeah.
So many never kick on. But look, I look at it, there's so much deadwood to sell. You've got, like, Ryan Sessegnon, been at the club 5 years. He was
a big talent, though. Like, do you know what I mean? He was a talented boy. Yeah. I thought he was a decent player, but I suppose, like, you look at Eric Dyer probably needs to go. You look at, what's happened to players like Tanganga? Who was it under?
Still there?
Who was it under that? Tanganga kind of broke through and had a lot of games. Was it Jose?
It was Jose, yeah.
Yeah.
Again, another one, though, came in. Look, you know what football fans are like, right? We're very tribalistic, aren't we, by nature? So a young player comes in from the youth team, and it doesn't matter how bad they are. Everyone goes, oh, my God, they're the next big thing. They're going to be 100 million.
Yeah.
Tanganga came in, had a good debut against... Then I believe they were champions. It was against Liverpool. It was Liverpool with Mane, Salah, and Firmino in their peak. They were all over us. It was at Spurs, and Tanganga was playing as part of a back three. It was his debut, and to be fair, he did well. Problem is, doing well in one game isn't an equivalent to the rest of your career. And the problem was that was four years ago now. And Tanganga's another one. Whenever he plays, you can see he's rash. He's not that comfortable on the ball. Look, again, who's going to buy him? And if they do buy him, it will be for pennies. So you guys should be very pleased with your outgoing business, not just this year in general, because that's how a company should run. If you're buying things, you're selling things, right? You're balancing your books. Spurs are not good at all at selling players.
Before we get back to Spurs, Matt, I just wanted to get your thoughts on this, because I see a lot of Chelsea fans kind of annoyed about it or a little bit split on it, perhaps can't move away from the past and Roman Abramovich and accept that Chelsea's going to be different now. What do you think of, because it's not, I don't want to say it's unique to Chelsea, but he's certainly probably the only Premier League team that are doing it, certainly Brighton do it to an extent, but Chelsea buying up a lot of young players. Obviously, we've acquired Strasbourg now. Multi-club model is sort of up and running. We're looking to acquire more clubs somewhere in Portugal potentially as well. Signing a lot of young players from South America, from around Europe to not necessarily go into the first team straight away, but to be developed, maybe come into the first team in a few years' time, or to be flipped on for a profit. A little bit like sort of the Red Bull model, obviously to an extent, maybe the City Group as well, although they don't tend to do it as much, but certainly Salzburg and Leipzig. What do you think of that approach? Because a lot of Chelsea fans I speak to aren't so sure on it, but I actually don't think it's that bad a thing to acquire good young talent, and develop it and maybe sell it on for a profit, or find yourself a decent player for cheap. Because for so long, fans have been like, oh, why can't we do what Brighton do? Why can't we find these players before we have to go and spend 60, 70, 80 million pounds on them? And then they're like, when Chelsea are doing it, why are we signing these guys? We need proven players already. So what are your views on what Chelsea are doing?
Nail on the head. Spurs fans do this. I for one, I look at models like Brighton and think to myself, how has no one snapped up the Brighton modelling system? Right? How has no one gone and got their scouts? But look, I think football's changed. I think now it's ever moving. Squads are huge. You've got a constant, players are moving at a quicker rate than they ever have. Transfer windows used to be clubs buying 2, maybe 3 players a window in a summer. Now transfer windows, people are like 7 or 8 are going out, 7 or 8 are coming. You got constant churn. And what you've got to have is you've got to have a squad, and you've got to have a good mix of exuberant youth with more experienced pros. And listen, buying young players it's always a risk, right? I mean, buying senior pros is a risk, but buying younger players is a risk because they either don't develop and then you take an absolute hit on them when you sell them, or they do develop. And then when you sell them, you bought them for 20 million, they're now 60 million, and the model works. For me, I just think, look, if I could give one bit of advice to Chelsea fans, I mean, look, Chelsea fans won't want to hear advice from a Spurs fan, but from a football fan is, look, Chelsea have been the most decorated club in the last 2 decades, right, in this country, right? And things have a cycle. That can't continue year in, year out. It didn't for Man U. That Man U came to a point where it fizzled out. It didn't for Chelsea, right? It didn't for Liverpool. It didn't for Arsenal. It won't always be that way for City. So if I was Chelsea, I know you're used to winning things every year in big pots as well. You will be back up there if you give the manager and some of the younger players some patience. It's a different model to how you're used to it. You're used to the big guns, the Lampards, the Drogbas, the Ballacks, I could go through all the Essians, the Makelellis. This is a different era for me. And I think lots of clubs now, even City, who are the best team in Europe, if the world, you watch them. They're buying young players.
Well, even Julian Alvarez, he cost 15 million quid. Like, that's an unbelievable buy.
Right. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I really, really don't think it's a bad thing. I think you could probably overdo it. I mean, I think you can overdo it. I think you've got to get the blend. I guess if Chelsea bring in, you'll know more than me. From an outsider's point of view, I look at Chelsea and think centre forward, couple of centre mids, and a goalkeeper. I think you'll have a good season, right? All the while you're doing that, as long as the first team's taken care of, I think the youth team, buying youth players is absolutely fine. Just buying youth players and ignoring the first team isn't fine. So I don't see anything wrong with it.
No, I don't either. I think it's different, and Spurs football fans don't like change. When you're so set in your ways, particularly for a lot of Chelsea fans like myself, have grown up in a generation of just knowing Roman, buying ready-made players, spending millions of pounds, winning trophies. A change like this is quite hard to can be quite difficult for fans to get their head around. But I actually don't think it's a bad way to go. And I think it's the way that football's going in general now anyway. I think you will see more and more clubs look to go down the data-driven model. I'm not saying that every club's going to go and acquire other clubs and run a multi-club model, but you will see signings like younger. I think a lot more clubs signing a lot more younger players. But I mean, mate, a couple of things in the chat for you, Saba. We might as well talk about it because Harry Kane, you must be sick to death of it. Every summer, it's the same question, mate.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the situation now? It's obviously back in pre-season training. Bayern Munich, we know, have had 2 bids knocked back now. No one else has come in for him as of yet. For Spurs, you've got a problem, essentially, because he either goes this summer and by keeping him longer and longer, you're leaving yourself not much time to replace him in the market. And secondly, you then run the risk of losing him for free, which I think would be criminal.
That's my show at 5 o'clock.
What do you think the club should do? Because obviously the last time you had a large chunk of money to spend from a player, you could say that the Gareth Bale money probably wasn't spent very well. Do you have the same sort of worries with the Harry Kane situation? If you've got, say, 80 to 100 million pounds from him, do you trust the club to reinvest that properly? And how do you replace Kane?
I mean, wow, how many questions at once? Right. Yeah. Okay. Let's start the Harry Kane conversation. First of all, lots of people always liken it to the Gareth Bale situation from 2000 and,
I don't know,
14,
13,
15, yeah, 13, 12, yeah. I don't know, 30, solid years ago. Yeah. Right. I think the difference is, back then, not every player cost 50, 60 million.
No, it is true. Yeah.
Right. So we were able to go and pick up 7 players for the combined cost of selling Bale for, I think it was 90 at the time, 92, 88, somewhere in that. And it was a huge fee. Now you sell Harry Kane. Let's just, for ease, let's use the number of 100 million. Okay. For ease. We'll talk about his fee in a minute. But if you sell Kane for 100 million, how many players do you realistically get for 100 million these days? Like
two
right.
Maybe?
3 tops. Right, exactly. So there's that. But then, as you said, the big thing is always going to be, do we take money now versus letting it go on a free? But I think what I genuinely think will happen, I truly believe will happen, if I take my Spurs hat off, if I look at this from a football fan, if you take your Chelsea hat off, you look at it from a football fan point of view. If you're Harry Kane, you're doing nothing. You've got a year left. Sit tight. See what pans out between now and January. In January, you can either sign for one of the foreign clubs on a free, like obviously for the end of the pre-contract agreement, or you get to a stage where you're in January, he's not signed a contract, and all the big clubs that are in the Champions League that are still in it and still fighting for titles will look at Harry Kane and go, we could sign Harry Kane for 40, 50 million here. Rather than waiting for him to go on a free, 40, 50 million, he could be the difference that takes us from here to winning the Champions League, because he won't be playing in Europe. He won't be cup tied. Or he just sees it all the way through, gets to next summer and has the kind of keys to the supermarket. Listen, I don't care what anyone says. This isn't me being biased. Yeah. Next year, how many clubs will put an offer in front of Kane if he's free?
Oh,
Munich, Madrid, Barcelona, Man United, Chelsea.
Yep.
You name it, they're going to bid for him. So Look, so far the biggest bid we've had has been 80 million euros, which is 68 million pounds.
It's not doing it at all.
Daniel Levy isn't going to wake up for 68 million pounds to answer the phone call, right? He's not. That's just who he is. So for me, I think there's lots. I think he'll be here. I think he'll either sign a new contract or he'll just let it fizzle out. That's only my thing. If he goes, he goes. I'm not one of these Spurs fans that's going to cry about it. We've had him for 10 years. We've seen him score over 300 goals for the club. But if he does go, I think that you don't replace Harry Kane like for like.
No.
Right?
Impossible.
I think then you find a different way of playing. I think then you go down more the Arsenal route of 3 players who all play across the front line that grab you 15 each, rather than one guy that grabs you 30 and everyone else gets 6 or 7. Listen, I'm just a humble Spurs fan, but I think the Harry Kane sagas have gone on for years and years and years. If he wants to move, let him move. But I can only see him being allowed to go to PSG or Bayern Munich if the number starts with a 9.
You think you think 90 million from Bayern, that gets the job done?
Million, not euros.
Not euros.
Yeah.
So you're probably looking at about 100 million euros probably gets the job done. 100 million euros, about 88 million quid. That probably does it.
Yeah, I think outside of the Premier League, yes. Yeah. I think if we were going to sell in the Premier League, the only club I can see it being the only one is Man United. And I think if Man United were to come with a bid, I think for him to be sold within the Premier League, I think you're looking at 110, 120, because Levy will not want to play ball with that. So it's a dangerous game, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. He's going to go at some point, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it must be something the club are thinking about, surely, at this point in time, that they're thinking about how they're going to replace him, not in terms of getting another player like Harry Kane, but what route they're going to go down to replace him. Do you replace him with another centre forward? Do you replace him with 2 centre forwards? Do you try and switch the way that you're playing? Does Richarlison go and play as a centre forward? Do you look to bring in a couple of versatile forwards to replace Kane? Like, these are conversations that surely you would like to think are taking place within the Spurs hierarchy as to how do we actually replace this guy? Because we've been ever reliant on him. It's 30 Premier League goals a season. That is very, very difficult to replace with one player. It'd be hard pushed to replace it with 2 players. So, like, these conversations have obviously they must be taking place within the club.
I reckon the club will have an idea, though, Charlie. Right? I think the club. Look, the problem is we're in this. Look, people like me and you don't help as YouTubers. We don't know.
We don't know. We don't help. No.
You know, news comes out, we report. Oh my God, what's happening, bro? But I think it's probably going to be a little bit more chilled and calm at the club about Harry Kane. I think they're going to have an idea, right? It's not as though this has only suddenly happened in the last couple of weeks. This has been approaching for months and months that he's come into his last year. They would have been having conversations all year about, is he staying? Is he going? What's he need to stay? What can we do to persuade him? Would he sign a new contract? I think they'll know more than they're letting on. I don't think they need to let anyone know anything at the moment. Spurs fans getting really annoyed going, Kane and his team haven't said anything. But what could Kane possibly come out and say that wouldn't get misconstrued and wouldn't set the media circus even more than it is? What could he say?
Well, exactly. I don't know what people are expecting him to say. They're like, "Oh, why hasn't he said anything?" Well, what do you want him to say? It's like, what could he possibly say? But look, I'll be interested to see kind of what happens with Kane and kind of whether he stays, whether he goes, and whatnot. But mate, moving on. Conor Gallagher reports this morning, I think Telegraph as well, saying that Chelsea, Spurs like Gallagher. Pochettino obviously appreciates him. I can see why Poch would like him. Work rate, pressing, energy off the ball, very fit and whatnot. Perhaps not the best on the ball, but Tottenham reportedly looking at him as a potential replacement for Højbjerg, who could be Atletico Madrid bound. Could cost around £50 million. We had an offer of £40 million plus 5 in bonuses from Everton in January. How do you see a potential Spurs move for Gallagher? Do you see him as a like-for-like replacement for Højbjerg? Because I certainly don't look at it like-for-like. I think Gallagher's more of a number 8/number 10.
I see Gallagher more. Gallagher's more attacking, more legs. Look, do you know what? I'll be consistent. I don't want to upset anyone on your channel. I don't mind Gallagher.
I don't mind him either. I think he's okay.
Yeah, I don't think he's brilliant. I don't think he's awful. I think he's a great person to have in your squad. I think that at the moment where Spurs' needs are, certainly is centre half, as we talked about earlier. So if we were to start bringing in Gallagher's at 50 million when we don't have centre backs, I'd be really annoyed. But at the same time, if we were to sort out those two centre backs, then Højbjerg was to go and you were to replace him with Gallagher and Gallagher was an option, I've got no problem with that. Then you've got lots of different players. You've got Maddison, Gallagher, Basuma, Bentancur, and that starts to look a lot stronger than what it was this time last year. So I don't see us paying 50 million for it. If I'm brutally honest, I don't see.
But it is kind of mad, 50 million for what would essentially be a squad player. That's
sure.
That is kind of mad. I mean, just briefly on the midfield makeup at Spurs. Obviously, you've got the likes of. I'm really surprised that Basuma hasn't done that well at Spurs. I know he's been injured. He wasn't always given a fair crack under Conte. But you look at him at Brighton, I thought that was a fantastic signing for Tottenham and it was a pretty cheap price as well for him. You got Højbjerg, who was good under Jose, but is kind of probably overstayed his welcome from my perspective. Bentancur's obviously has picked up a serious injury. I mean, how do you view the midfield options? Who do you think needs to go? How many more midfielders do you think you need?
Yeah, I feel sorry for Basuma. I think Basuma came in, wasn't fit. I think when he joined us, he was suffering from long COVID. And we were told that he wasn't going to play immediately. Then when he came in, the two-man midfield didn't really suit him. I feel like when I've seen him at his best with Brighton, he's been more of a three-man midfield, box to box rather than a holding midfielder or an attacking midfielder. I think he's just a midfielder. Remember the days when people could just be called midfielders?
Just a midfielder, yeah.
Just a midfielder. Then obviously he picked up that 3.5 month injury. But listen, as you know, I'm so happy Conte's gone. And I think some of the players that were poor under Conte, you will see a new lease of life of them under a more expressive attacking manager. So look, the midfield balance, look, what Spurs have got, look, we've got the playmaker, right?
Yeah.
James Maddison, really happy with that. You've got Basuma and Bentancur, who are probably your eights, right? You've got Basuma and Bentancur. What we don't have at this club is a top-class number 6.
Same as us. Everyone wants one.
Right. An Amrabat, that type of player.
Yeah.
That is what I think most clubs are looking at. And especially in front of our frail defence, I think we really need somebody who's an out-and-out number 6, not trying to shoehorn someone in there. Not
Dyer in there. Yeah.
Oh, don't. We had that talk this morning. Yeah. So look, we've got some good midfielders. Problem you've got is Bentancur's injured, and he won't be back until apparently late November because he did the
ACL,
ACL.
That's quite a while still, isn't it? That's missing a good first half of the season. Not all of it, but yeah.
And even then, if you come back from a 9-month injury, because he got injured in January,
a few weeks to get up to scratch, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. So it's going to take you a while. So I think we need another centre mid in there. I wouldn't be surprised if Postecoglou lets go of Højbjerg and goes and gets one of the boys he knows from Celtic for their work rate, either someone like O'Reilly or Hatate, somebody with really good. I think, look, from what we've seen with Postecoglou, from what I've read about him, from the reports, you've got to have a good engine to play for him. You've got to be box to box. You've got to do it all. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that.
Yeah, I reckon. Well, another player I wanted to speak to you about that it's got high potential, didn't get a look in under Conte, went on loan. I don't know how he did at Rennes. What would you see in the future of Jed Spence? Because obviously it was a talented boy at Forest, did well there. And I didn't get a chance at Spurs at all. I don't look at that as a Conte sign. I look at that as what they would call a club signing, as it were. That phrase that fans love to use. Obviously you got Pedro Porro now as well. What do you see the future of Jed Spence looking like this season? Do you think Ange will like him?
I don't know. Hang on, sorry. My bear with me 1 second. My computer's just told me it's about to do a restart. So let me set it. Let me make sure it doesn't do that. Pick a time, 2 a.m. Yeah, let's do it at 2 a.m. Big time. 2 a.m. tomorrow. There we go. Sorry, I just had this horrible feeling it would just go. Look, Jed Spence. It's strange. I would have thought the fact that Spurs didn't really have a right wing back at the club last year, that Jed Spence would have been given some time underneath Antonio Conte. But instead, he went for Emerson Royale, who's more of a right back. Obviously, then he got shipped out on loan. He's the one player that Conte alluded to, if you remember, at the beginning of last season when he was asked about his signings, the 7 signings. He was asked, are you happy? And he was like, I'm really, really happy. And then the only one he singled out and used the word club signing is Spence. Now, I don't know how good he is. I've seen clips of him whilst playing in France where he's looked good. I've seen clips where it looks like he can't defend. I don't know how good if I'm brutally honest, I don't know. He had a couple of great games for Forest against, I believe it was Arsenal and Leicester in FA Cup games.
FA Cup. He was really good.
Yeah, and everyone sort of went, oh my God, this boy's brilliant. And it was like, all right, hang on, it's only 2 games. But I don't know, mate. We've got Porro on that right side, Royale on that right side, and Spence on that right side. So
overstocked, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I've got a feeling that Porro's going to be used more as a forward player, attacking player, rather than a right back.
You think you could use him as a right winger?
I think he can't defend. He's not very good defensively, but scores and assists. So, look, I'm saying all this. All Spurs fans, we can all say what we want. We've not played a game under Postecoglou yet, so we've got no idea. Yeah. Like for our first friendly, no one's going to bother like predicting the day before a lineup.
No.
But we're playing European champions West Ham on Monday, I think. So or Tuesday.
Huge.
Big pre-season game.
So just one other player before I get your final thoughts on Chelsea. How important is this season for Richarlison? Because last season was tough for him. Big money signing at 60 million quid. I think one Premier League goal up at Anfield. How do you see him fitting in this season? Because obviously he needs to push on. I think it's clear that Conte wasn't the biggest fan of him. He didn't particularly like Antonio Conte either. What are your thoughts on Richarlison for this season?
Oh, tough one. I mean, look, if you're buying Richarlison's a centre forward, right? If
we were linked with him as well. Like before you signed him, we were linked with him as well. And I would have quite liked him, but seeing how it's turned out, perhaps better that we didn't get him. I don't know.
I don't think he's got any standout qualities for me. Like, I think the problem is if you are going to buy a centre forward who claims he doesn't like playing off the left or the right, he wants to play through the middle. If you're going to buy that player for 60 million in a formation where you only play one centre forward and that one centre forward is Harry Kane, what's the hope for him? Do you know what I mean? What is the plan for this guy? So look, last year it was, loads of Spurs fans. It was at one point it was like, oh my God, who would you rather have? Is it Jesus? Is it Richarlison? And there was this big debate. And oh my God, one's Brazil's number 9, the other one can't get Brazil's team.
Thing, isn't it? Like people always go, oh yeah, but he's Brazil's number 9. But that doesn't matter for Tottenham though. Like that's irrelevant to how he fits in at the club, isn't it? So
yeah, it's all right when you're playing with Vinicius Junior.
Neymar,
Rodrigo, Paqueta, Casemiro. Yeah. Look, I don't know. It's difficult. Whoever comes to Spurs, listen, who knows how the universe works? If Kane goes, that could be the time where Richarlison gets his game time and he gets 15 Premier League goals in the season. I don't know. Or Kane goes and Sonny goes through the middle and he gets his goal scoring touchback. Look, Harry Kane is the cure and the curse. It is wonderful having one of the world's best strikers in your team. But that also means you always know that whatever striker you get, you're not going to get a lot out of them. So, look, other clubs don't have that. Other clubs don't have... How many clubs have a Harry Kane at number 9?
None. There's literally hardly any clubs in... Haaland at City.
Right.
That's probably... In the Premier League, that is literally it, I would say. Like in terms of...
To a lesser degree, you might chuck Toney in there. But
possibly.
In terms of clubs with centre forwards that score 25, 30 goals year in, year out.
2 teams in the Premier League, that's it.
You've got Haaland. In the world, I can do 6 in the world. Benzema. Yeah. He's now gone. No one's getting him.
No.
Lewandowski.
Yeah, Lewandowski.
Yeah.
He did,
No
yeah,
one's getting Lewandowski. He's at
Mbappe.
Barcelona. Mbappe, there's only one club in the world getting Mbappe.
Yeah.
Right? Kane,
Yeah.
Haaland.
That's it. That is literally it. So it's a really, really short list for sure. Mate, just to round out, what are your thoughts on Chelsea? It's always interesting to get people's thoughts from an outside perspective rather than just constantly from within the Chelsea bubble, as it were. Poch has been here, like I think this is his second week of preseason. Now we're going out to the States. As I said, the business has been a little bit slow. Outgoings have been great. Incoming's been a little bit slow on that front. Ideally, we'd like this Caicedo deal done before next week. But do you look at Chelsea and the business they've done so far, the players that they're linked with, and with Pochettino, a manager that you know well from his time at Spurs, do you think we could be well set for this season? Because I feel that a lot of it depends on the recruitment that takes place before the season starts. But do you think Chelsea are well set?
Yeah, I think you'll be fine. What I think I listen. You and I had this chat when we met before the summer, even all the summer games and transfer window began. For me, I always said what Poch will do is he will look at that massive squad you've got and trim it. Straight away, he will trim it. He will get rid of players that can't run. He will get rid of players that he thinks haven't got the attitude. And he will get rid of players that can't press. He will keep the young, hungry players that you have signed over the last 2-3 years. And then the rest he will build on top of it. And that's what he's done. In essence, that's what he's done. You look at all the players you've kept, right? All the players going out the door. Look at the age of them, right? All the players you've kept are all 24 and under, other than James Chilwell and
Silva.
As Silva, right?
I mean, and Nkunku's 25, but yeah, like it's 25 and under, really. But yeah. There's no
and Nkunku. Obviously, Nkunku was a signing before Poch as well. So, but Nkunku, a fantastic signing coming in. I think in the next couple of weeks, I've got no knowledge. I've got nothing to base this off. I think Chelsea will make their moves in the next couple of weeks. I think you'll get Caicedo, however you pronounce it, Caicedo through the door.
Caicedo, yeah.
I think whether or not you get a Vlahovic, a Jonathan David, whoever it is, I think you'll get another forward. I think you'll get another couple of central midfielders. And I think that's good. I don't think you need millions of players to play once a week. I don't think you want a squad where, for me, last year, I watched Chelsea a lot, right? Obviously, you're always on TV, right? You guys, it was a different formation every week. It was a different lineup every week. So, like, Mudryk played one game, and if he didn't set the world alight, he didn't play for two, and people go, oh, he's been rubbish. And you're like, well, hang on. Why don't you try the same front three for maybe 5 games in a row and see what happens? So Poch will do that. And I think, I think this year you'll finish 5th or 4th. I do. I think you'll be 5th or 4th. And I think that will be enough to get you into Champions League.
Yeah. Well,
I think you'll get you harmonious.
That's got to be the end. We have to get back into Champions League football. Top 5 should get that. And then if we can add a domestic cup, fantastic. But yeah, look, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. There's still a long time to go. I think both Spurs and Chelsea have no European football, as shit as it is. I think it's going to massively benefit both of us just from a time on the training pitch perspective. Like,
I agree.
Obviously, we don't want it to be more than one season, but I think it is going to be really helpful. And I think once those Champions League games start coming thick and fast, once the knockout rounds start as well, like, we're going to be chilling playing once a week, and that is going to be really beneficial, not having to think about rotation and all that sort of thing. But yeah, there's a long way to go in the window still. A lot can still happen. But yeah, seems like a good point to round the show out. Sava, thanks for your time as always, mate. It's massively appreciated. Mate, if people don't know where you are, what you're doing, where's the best place for them to go? Currently smashing it, well on the way to 10K as well, mate.
Near a 10K than 1K. I'm kind of pulling away. But listen, Football Heritage TV, a lot of Spurs content. But look, I don't want to pigeonhole myself. I like to do content about other clubs. I'm a football fan. I'm a Spurs fan, but I'm a football fan, right? I want to take an interest in what other clubs are doing. I like to have debates with football fans where we can remove our club hats and actually have a sensible conversation rather than people who just go, oh, you're Spurs. Okay, good. What does that mean? Like, I don't know.
We can't talk about anything else, yeah?
Yeah. So people can find me there. I have a couple of shows a week and we do all right numbers-wise. So, yeah. But listen, thanks for coming on, having me on. And please come on my show in the next week or two.
Mate, just let me know when, mate. I'll be more than happy to be there. Guys, Sava's channel will be tagged in the description. All you've got to do is click on there. Make sure you go and subscribe to him. Loads of great stuff on there. Top guy. Guys, on the way out, make sure you smash the like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I'll be back later tonight with the Chelsea transfer stream, so make sure you stay locked in for that one, people. But until then, guys, take care, and I'll catch you again soon.